assumes online is just like purely conspiracy content. The only
Okay, this is where I snapped. Freaking EFAP, specifically Mahler, but the rest of the EFAPers with him were not helping his case. They really pissed me off with this one. Okay, YMS made it very clear in his statement he was given an antidote that predisposed him to dislike Drinker in one certain way. And he made it clear it was an antidote. It was a bias he had. He said multiple times, explaining to Mahler, that it was influenced his bias. And this influence he wanted to mention so the cards are on the table and there's nothing hidden. Or just to make it clear, which he said multiple times to Mahler. And then Mahler pretends that, oh, you shouldn't have this because you're preloading the video against a Drinker. And before that, he actually is trying to convince YMS that his audience is against Drinker more so than it is with Drinker. And YMS explains multiple times he doesn't think that's the case. He thinks it's maybe 50-50, but probably not really against Drinker. He thinks they're pretty fair. It's like, okay, he might have reason to believe that. He might not. But Mahler insists on asking the question 3 or 4 times, rephrasing it each time he asks the question. So, how the heck can you expect me to believe you're being honest when you're keep trying to make him say yes just so you can prove him wrong on one point? Because you wanted him to say, yes, my audience is against Drinker. But YMS said multiple times in many different ways, because he had to answer the question several times thanks to Mahler insisting on it. But he just constantly tells you that, hey, I don't believe they're biased against him, and comments on the video about this subject lead me to believe so as well. That's all he can do. He will not be certain. He cannot just suddenly make his audience more biased or less biased. So he gave you the answer that he thinks he has reason to believe, and yet you insisted on it so many times. And not even that is the worst part. The worst part is right after that, you tell YMS, and I'm talking to you, Mueller, specifically, because the other two have not talked as much, but you tell YMS that you cannot put anecdotes like this in a video because people will use it against or be more biased against Drinker because of the anecdote. Which, whether true or not, you're telling YMS how he needs to structure his video to be more fair. However, YMS explained multiple times that the reason he had this in is because he believed in putting his bias out there, that he had preconceived notions for these reasons, and these are the things he knows about Drinker. And he made that clear more than once because Mahler kept insisting. And so, how the heck can you then say, okay, you shouldn't do that? Because that's like saying that, Mahler, you cannot tell somebody that, oh, it's a Disney movie. It's probably not going to be good this time. It's like, okay, you're probably going to be right. And just like the antidote, that's a true statement, and for many people, and probably for Mahler at the time, which he has made that statement many times, and I have no problem with it. But he's then telling YMS that he can't make a statement similar to that. That's unfair, because you're trying to appeal to the small range of people that's going to take your statement out of context and specifically focus on, oh, crazies like Drinker's content, so therefore Drinker is crazy. YMS did not say that. He said he knew a guy that was crazy, or had a crazy idea at least. Well, he knew a girl that was married to a guy who did so, I think was the anecdote he used. But regardless, he said that they had a crazy idea, and that's more of the people from his narrow view of Drinker. That's more of the people that his audience is composed of. And that's what he thinks. That he said it many times, and I'm saying it many times because apparently it's something that needs to be stressed because Mahler just refused to understand that that was his preconceived notion, and he was putting it on the table. And if someone took it out of context to mean something else, like this is a definitive statement on why Drinker is crazy or why Drinker should not be listened to, then, well, they're taking it out of context. So there's no helping people like that. Regardless if it's a bad day for them or they're literally insane and couldn't understand or didn't want to, you can't help people like that because they had the opportunity to understand. It's there in the context if you actually watch the video. It's very plain what his whole point was and the reason he included this little segment, and he explains this to Mahler as well, and Mahler refused to friggin' I don't even think he refused to understand, because I know he understands things like this very clearly. Mahler doesn't appeal to the few crazies in his audience that just refuse to believe that Mahler's anything but a woman hater and a feminist, anti-feminist, I guess is the word. But yeah, Mahler doesn't appeal to those people. Why would you appeal to people who think you're an anti-feminist, woman hater, misogynist? You don't, because the only reason they think those things is because they take you out of context, or they believe somebody who also took you out of context. Because if they listened to Mahler's videos or EFAP's videos, they would see Mahler does not hate women, no more than men at the very least. So there's no reason for these beliefs. Just like if people think YMS hates Drinker for this antidote he gave, that's because they didn't listen to when he said, this is just an antidote from my own experience that gave me a preconceived notion on this guy I'm talking about. So if they ignore his first part of the argument or antidote, why does it matter what the second part is? Because you take anything out of context and you're losing the meaning of it. More times than not, you lose the entire meaning if you take just the last part out of context. It just doesn't work. It never will. And yet, Mahler pretends that he's got YMS on this for some reason. My only theory is that Mahler is being overly offended for his friend Drinker, which, understandable. It's his friend. He wants to defend him for something that he believes is an injustice. No blame there. However, he refuses to listen to the argument given to him, showing his bias against anybody that insults Drinker, or at least in this instance. And for someone who's usually so good at not having a bias that influences their entire view so much, it's just frustrating to see. And neither of his friends called him out on it, which is also frustrating to see because I respect all three of the EFAP members on this video. It's just so annoying because I know each one of them is usually very good at this. They're usually insanely detailed. They're usually insanely good at the details of picking up on when someone is using something to skew perspective and leaving out information on purpose to skew the perspective or adding information that wasn't there. And yet that's what Mahler did several times up to this point in the video. And I just can't stand to watch anymore because of how much he did it in the first hour of a 9-hour video. Usually his daggum 9-hour videos is like the best 9 hours the best hours of the first 9. And then the other 3 are catch-ups of super chat catch-ups. And so it's ridiculous that I've gotten 1 hour into this video and I'm so just disappointed and a little pissed off that he couldn't see his own bias to the point of completely calling out YMS for not removing an antidote that he thought was relevant. And regardless if Mahler thinks you should never do that, Mahler does this many times himself by saying, oh, look, we're watching the Kenobi show and it's going to be terrible. Or he'll say it's going to be great in a sarcastic voice. That is also loading your video with negativity towards the subject you're talking about. It's just in a different way, but it's the same exact concept. And there is nothing wrong with this concept. Whether it's an antidote or just you sarcastically saying something will be great when you know it won't. And once again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But why are you getting on YMS for doing this? It's purely because of your bias in wanting to defend Drinker for what you perceive as an unreasonable attack. And I ain't even going to watch the rest of the video right now because I am just too annoyed to push through it. I just wish that Fringy or Rags would have called you out on this, Mahler, because I just don't see how you didn't see it yourself. You are being a turd. You are being very unreasonable. And for things that you complain about other people doing to you, which you should complain. If people are calling you a woman hater and then citing the reason as they took you out of context, you don't appeal to those people because there's no point of appealing to those people. Those people are going to take you out of context regardless of what you say. You could literally say the words, I love women more than men, and they will still take you out of context for no reason other than wanting to dislike you or whatever reason they found on Reddit or whatever reason they may have found anywhere on the internet. They will still take you out of context even if you speak specifically to them and correct them. So why are you appealing to them at all? That is why I'm so pissed at you taking his anecdote and saying he can't have it. He can have his anecdote because he clarified, as he said to you after you asked the question, which you asked more than once. As he said to you, he clarifies, this gave me a preconceived notion about Drinker before I even did anything else with the video. And this gave me a bias, and that's why he put it out there, is because he wanted to get it out in the open medium of the internet in a video, just to show that, hey, I have a bias against Drinker for these reasons. And he made that clear. And the people that don't understand that that's the reason he said it are the people you don't appeal to regardless. Mahler, you do not do this. Rags, Fringy, you don't do this. Because you can't appeal to those people. You just can't. The people that think you're a misogynist or a right-winger or a left-winger or an alt-right or any number of political terms that when you refuse to talk about politics for the most part, why would you appeal to them? But they're talking about something that you don't even talk about yourself for 99.9% of the time. So why are you telling YMS to appeal to those people even though you wouldn't? It's so hypocritical, it astounds me. I cannot understand it. And that's why I've made this short little stupid video on my phone in case somebody's wondering. And it's just frustrating to see from you guys. I will guarantee I will watch more of your videos and your videos about movie critiques and other people's reviews of movies is just so great. Fantastic. I watched entire 12-hour movies while 12-hour reviews about movies from you guys or about shows from you guys while I was cooking, while I was cleaning, or while I was doing laundry, and I just let the thing play for a full 12 hours and watch it in one day. Do other stuff in the background and pause it every now and then to eat, of course, but I'd watch the entire thing in one day. That's how invested I was. And I do not get that experience pretty much from anyone else that I could ever think of. I don't think it's happened in my life from anyone. And yet you guys in this EFAP number 248 disappointed me to such a degree that I couldn't even finish more than an hour of your video, of a 9-hour video, so shorter than even some of the ones that I finished in a day. I'm, like I said, truly astounded that you did this to anyone, but specifically to YMS at this time. I can't understand how you did not notice what you did so unfairly. And I doubt you will ever see this. This is my first video, period. So I guess if you include nonsense for school or some other small stuff like that that might not be my first, but my first YouTube video that I'm trying to post for just to let out some frustration that I feel like I'm not the only one that has felt it. And very, very doubtful, but I hope it will change your opinion on these things you have said, because I believe you were truly unfair. I believe you know that you were unfair if you went back and studied it or looked it over. I don't know how you didn't catch it at the time, but things do happen. So, if you ever see this, hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Continue doing EFAP because they're 90% great, with maybe 10% where you do stuff like this, which is so uncommon. And this is probably the worst example I've seen, period. So I hope if you ever do see this, it will cause you to do so less and be a little more aware of the bias that you let control your arguments and conversation in this first hour of EFAP 248. You guys take care and enjoy, and that is all for me.